Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Optimus NFL show. I am your host, Brad Bolt. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, good buddy, and the Optimus NFL draft analyst. It's Dan O'Connell. Dan, how are we going?
Brad, I am doing good. We've been waiting for this episode for a little bit. We've been excited for it for a long time. Now that it's finally here, we'll try and keep it to a decent sort of time frame, but we can't make any promises because we tend to go off on tangents a fair bit once we start talking. So hopefully we can keep it under 2 hours, we were saying just before we started recording. But yeah, we'll try and find the sweet spot for it and go from there.
That is the goal. We shall see how we go. So as I mentioned, and if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see down the scroll down the bottom, we are doing our top 15 edge rushers for this. Now, if we had more freer schedules in our outside life, this would probably be a top 25 edge rusher class that we would have ended up doing, just because that's how deep this class actually is. So we are going to do our top 15. We are going to go back and forth with our guys who we have in these positions, why we might have them there. There may be some massive differences here, which is sort of what we're expecting for some people. And there might just be some guys that we might end up just mentioning that were just outside of our top 15. So what we are trying to do here is we're just trying to give you how we see these guys and why we have them ranked where we are. Obviously, if you are watching along and you want to play along and have your top 15 that you can go along with us, we'd love to hear from you as well on that and why you have certain guys where you do. So, Dan, I'm going to start with you. Can you give us your 15 through 11 for your edge rushers?
All right, so at 15, I've got Jordan Birch out of Oregon. At 14, I had Jared Ivey out of Mississippi. 13, I've got Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. And I had trouble with him, so we'll have a chat about him when we get going. I'm keen to see where you end up with Jack Sawyer, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Number 12, I've got Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. And number 11, I've got JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State.
So we have a few guys that are in that same sort of area. There's a couple that you have. Well, there's one that you have in your top 15 that I don't have in mine. So I will. So give me your rundown actually on Jordan Birch, because I had him at 17. I had Jordan Birch at 17 for me.
Yeah, okay. And to be fair, from number 11 to probably about number 18, I think you can throw a blanket over them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to sort of team dependent and what teams like out of these guys and what they're looking for, because there's a few different sort of body types and sort of styles and that sort of thing. But yeah, not surprised that we're a little bit different on Jordan Birch. Like I said, there's a blanket you could throw over most of these guys that we're about to talk about. So, but Jordan Birch out of Oregon, like I said, 6'4", 279 pounds. A senior, he'll be 24 in October. So he's a little bit up there in age, but it also, there was a lot of early seasons for him where he wasn't playing a lot. He's transferred to Oregon the year before in 2023. And then his production sort of flew off the charts this year, just gone now. So he had 8.5 sacks the season just gone. So you look at his strengths and his athleticism for his size. Like I said, he's 279, so he's not small, one of these small edge guys. He's borderline defensive tackle sort of guy. Yeah. And so he's got that athleticism off the edge to be disruptive there. Like I just said, he's got the versatility to play inside as well and all along the line. So that's something that teams will be looking for there with him. And then for his size, he's got pretty decent bend as well to get around that corner. So there's a lot of sort of traits that you'll like in him and that'll translate pretty well to the NFL. at the next level. So it's just whether he can sort of continue that development that he showed the past season just gone compared to sort of earlier in his career.
Yeah, so like you said, probably 11 through about 18, you could throw a blanket over. So it's literally just personal preference in the end. So hence why I've got Jordan Birch just outside the top 15. But it's also one of these things that had we potentially had the type of time that we would have liked on these, like, you know, the other thing is too what film you watch of these guys and those sorts of things as well. So if we had more time and I was able to watch a little bit more film on some of these guys, there is potential that he may have crept up into that top 15 sort of range for me. But just based off of what I saw, like I said, personal preference, I don't know, maybe I was sort of thinking that he potentially could be like a kick inside to a D tackle type of thing, or maybe play as like a 3-4 edge rusher as opposed to a 3-4 defensive end, I should say, as opposed to a typical edge, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's why I had there. I'll give you my 15 through 11, and then we can go back and forth on a couple guys. So I had at 15, I had Kyle Kennard 15.
Okay.
I had Jack Sawyer 14.
Yep.
Jared Ivey at 13. JT Tuamaloau at 12. And I had Braden Swinson out of LSU at 11.
Okay. Yeah. Swinson was 16 for me.
Yeah, okay. So, like I said, personal preference. So, I guess if I go with what I saw with him, so I thought that he had some, from what I was watching, like he had some good burst. So I really like that. Like it's, you know, you can see some super explosive guys, but sometimes you don't need the most explosive guy. But if there's enough burst there to put someone back on their heels a little bit, that's sort of what I like there. Like I said, I don't think he had like elite speed or bend, but he had pretty decent speed and bend from what I was watching. So it's not a guy that I am going to be saying like, look, I'm expecting him to be a 15 to 20 sack guy year in, year out sort of thing. But a guy who's going to be a productive player who a team's going to notice when he's out there is sort of how I was looking at him. I thought, well, he's got a high pass rush win percentage for each of the last 3 seasons. So, look, there are some guys in this class who we've probably got higher who maybe didn't have as good a win rate, but you know, some of the intangibles put them up higher because of things like that. So I also thought just very active hands. I was really, really liking what I saw coming out of him. The only couple of the things that I'd say is sometimes his hand placement wasn't necessarily it felt like he wasn't able to disengage from like the tackle as well. So he'd get the hand out there, he'd get on the tackle, and when you see the good guys who get the hand out there to, you know, to start their move to try and push the tackle back, they hit hard, then move the hands back to finish their move. He sort of just held his hand there and didn't get it off in time, like as quick as I would have, you know, you see some of the elite guys do. The only other thing too, one of the main things I'd say, some of his, like, when trying to set up some of his pass rush moves, there was some of those, and I'm not sure if you thought this about him or some of the other guys we might end up talking about, but just some unnecessary steps in his and you know, moves and things like that. So you want the guy to sort of take the least amount of steps to get into his move and to get it to the quarterback and all that sort of stuff. And it just felt like sometimes there was just far too many steps in there. It's like, you know, it's almost like a wide receiver sometimes. You want them to take the 7 steps and then cut in. You don't need them to do all that dancing off the line to get open sometimes. And that just felt like with his pass rush moves sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes he just had too many steps, too many you know, unnecessary movements that were needed to get into that pass rush move. But I liked what I saw from him.
it's the wasted motion that you can't afford to do at the next level, especially for pass rushes. Like those split
Yeah,
seconds that you're mucking around with your feet trying to set up the offensive tackle when it doesn't really need to happen because you're just basically doing nothing at the end of the day. It's those
yeah,
split seconds that make the difference of you could get to the quarterback or you just miss. So yeah, it's things like
well,
that just need to be refined when you get to the next level.
yeah, and it's one of those things too that for a quarterback to, from snap to when the ball comes out of the quarterback's hand, average time is sort of that 2.2 to 2.3 seconds. 2.6 is holding the ball too late. So if
Yeah,
you've got all those unnecessary steps to get into it, by the time you get to your move and get to the quarterback, the ball's gone. Even if he holds it late, the ball's already gone because you've just had those extra steps that you weren't necessary. So
yeah.
that's why I had him there. Who did you want to talk about next?
Well, we'll go. We'll go with 14 for me, which is Jared Ivey. I think he was
Okay.
13 for you or 12 for you.
13 for me. I had Ivy
13.
13.
Okay. So yeah, okay, we can switch because you had Jack Sawyer at 14, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so we basically just flip those two there.
Flip those.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Jared Ivey out of Mississippi, 6'5", 274 pounds. So he's another one of these guys that he could play inside a lot as well for the defense and just move him
Mm.
around a lot along that defensive line. So the matchups can be there for him to take advantage of. So again, he's going to be 24 in December. So it's another one of those guys that are on the older side. But
Mm-hmm.
the production's there for him. It could be better, but I think when you see him get to the next level with a lot more talent around him as well, he'll be able to flash a lot more than what he did. So you look at his strengths, and for me, it's the burst off the snap at his size is really impressive to me. It's something you look for, and
It's
the way he
imposing,
gets off
isn't
the
it? It's
ball.
pretty imposing.
Oh, absolutely. At that
Mm.
size and that build, for that first step of his, yeah, he's going to cause trouble when offensive line isn't going to be able to key in on him. So, and like I said, the ability to play along the defensive line, maximize the mismatches there.
Yeah.
And then he's got good power. Obviously, you expect it out of his size, but there's some guys that are like the size that he is, and they can still get manhandled by the offensive tackles. Whereas Jared Ivey, he's
Mm.
able to fight off the blockers and keep them at bay a lot of the time. So you look for that power and strength that he has in his game, and to go along with that short area quickness there as well, which is really key for him. And I like we look at edge defenders, and you want to focus on how they rush the passer a lot, but you also need to look at how they are in run defense as well. And I think Jared Ivey can sort of develop into one of those upper echelon run defenders on the edge, which that'll keep him on the field for pretty much every snap that he wants to play, depending on his conditioning and that sort of thing. So be really good run defenders. They're going to sit there on the field for 3 downs, and that's what you're looking for with these guys.
Yeah. I thought very similar with your pros and the things that you liked about him. I had pretty similar there. The main thing I noticed with his cons, weaknesses, things that could be improved better, were mainly just that it felt like he lost his leverage and popped up out of his stance a little too quick. So therefore he could get moved around by the blockers because they could get up under his pads and move him out the way a bit. So if he can just clean that up, I think he could actually, to me, it's one of those things. If he didn't do that, if his like leverage and his stance and everything was that little bit better, he would be a top 10 edge rusher for me. It's just that
Yeah.
him being able to be moved around at times by the offensive lineman and how he popped up from his stance and loses his leverage. Like, yeah, that can work in college a bit better, but once you get to the pros, that's going to be so much harder to beat those top tier tackles in the NFL if you're too high early. Like, just thinking playing against the Lions, if he comes across Panay Sewell, like Panay Sewell to me is just going to be like, right, I'm just going to be able to move you out the way, which I know is a difficult thing because Panay Sewell can do that, but this
Do
is
that
a
pretty
guy
much
who we
anyone.
might have to, yeah. But this is a guy who he's going to have to come up against. So you just want him to just refine that technique. And I think he could be a really productive guy in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he's got a really high floor. Like you look for guys that are obviously going to have that potential to move up into the upper echelon of sort of pass rushers and defensive ends and that sort of thing. But you also need someone that's just going to have a really high floor, and then you can develop them from there as well. And I think he's still got a fair amount of development to do. So I'm pretty excited to see where he ends up and just to watch that sort of progress over the next sort of 12 to 18 months with him as well.
Yeah. So I'll move on to Jack Sawyer. So I had him 14, you had him 13. This is where we just flipped the two. I had good eyes, timing. He had a pretty decent, consistent first step. Like he's very rarely out of position. I'm not sure if you saw that as well. Like he was never one of these guys that when you're watching him, you're like, what is he doing? Like he was in the right spot. And so therefore he had a good feel too for where he needed to get his hands and everything to try and break up the pass as much as possible. I didn't think he was a super athletic. Like he's good enough, but he's not like one of these elite athletes that you just look at and you're like, this guy's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Then I said that he just didn't seem to have a lot of rushing moves. Like he had power, but there's none of those things that make those guys in the NFL and all that elite. Like one of the guys who, we'll talk about, who I'm pretty much certain is going to be our number one edge rusher. But he's got moves. Like he's got the ability to throw different moves at people. And he's that type of athlete who it's just eye-popping when you watch him on the screen. Like you need to account for him all the time because of what he can do. And to me, Jack Sawyer didn't really have that and didn't have a vast array of pass rushing moves that would scare an offensive line to not hit.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't the same for him.
No, exactly. That's the thing as well. And like you said, for me, he's got one of the best football IQs that we've seen in this edge rushing class. Like he just knows how to play the game from his position. The issue with him, like we both said, is the lack of athleticism for him shows up on tape. So he's not going to be able to beat offensive tackles consistently in the NFL because of that lack of athleticism. Like he's not going to be able to just bull rush him like he did in college. Whereas that's where he got a lot of his production. He was just able to overpower the offensive line. And he's not going to be able to do that in the NFL. So whether or not at this point in time he can develop those pass rush moves, I think he can because, like I said, he's smart enough and he works his ass off every down. So I think he's got the ability to be able to learn more moves. So it's just that ceiling of his is limited at the moment compared to some of these other guys where we're not going to see him be that sort of double-digit sack guy each year, but we're going to see him be a really good starter for probably 10-plus years.
Yeah, he's going to always be one of those guys that you're going to look back at the end of every season and go, do you know who had a decent season was Jack Sawyer? It's nothing eye-popping, but he just always seemed to show up on whether it be the All-22 film or just when there was plays that would happen. He just seemed to be in and around the ball. But like you said, it's just the lack of athleticism compared to some of these other guys that we're looking at here was noticeable when you're watching guy after guy after guy, and you're just like, okay, this isn't the same as the last couple of guys that we may have seen.
Yeah.
So where did you have Kyle Kennard again?
I had Kyle Kennard at, I believe, 12.
Okay, so I had him at 15.
Yeah.
So give me your thoughts
what
on
you saw with him.
So I'll go first. So I thought he had a very explosive first step. It was like really good speed to power rusher. So he's just able to explode out the block. I thought it was great, and then he was able to convert that into power as well. 0 wasted steps. So when we were sort of saying before about some of the other guys and the wasted first steps and too much movement, like I didn't see that as much with Kyle Kennard. Some really good hand movement, hand placement, sort of the way that he was able to shed blockers and get around, sort of thing. I just thought, now I'm just looking at my notes here. I had written down that I didn't see a lot of counter moves if his first pass rush move failed. Like the best pass rushes that we see, they go, right, my pass rush move is I'm going to run in, I'm going to spin inside between the tackle and the guard, and that's my plan. And if that gets walled up, they're like, okay, my next plan is to do this, and they've got a good counter that they can do that. And he just didn't seem to have that in comparison to some other people. He just once he got stifled on that first pass rush move, it's sort of like, okay, well, he's out of the play almost. Like he'll keep trying, but he had one move. He didn't really have the counter to work on that. And I didn't think he was that fantastic in run defense.
Yeah.
That was sort of my main sort of things that, like, there's some guys that you see in the NFL who they're in there for the pass rush only. And if they chuck a run at them, they're almost it's almost playing with one less person on the field sometimes. He didn't show he was fantastic in run defense, was my thinking.
I agree with that. Like, my weakness needs to improve in run defense, which is going to limit his role early on in his career. So he's going to be the first sort of season or two, he's going to be that sort of pass rush specialist type of guy, which obviously there's a major role for that in the NFL, but also with the way that it's starting to shift back as well to, I wouldn't say run dominant, but we've seen a lot of these running backs really raise in value now the last season or two.
Yeah.
So you need your edge guys to be able to contain the run as well, which he just won't do at the moment. So he's not going to be on the field all 3 downs. He's going to be sort of second down, third down type of guy. He won't be on the field all that often in first down to start. But for me, there's just so much upside with him, I think, if he puts it all together.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's got the good upside if he can put it all together and work on a few of those things.
Yeah, and for me, I was willing to overlook the sort of run defense to start with, which is why I had him at 12, just because I think as a pass rusher, he can be up there with sort of the top 10 guys in this class as a pure pass rusher. So he's got that quickness off the snap. He's got the ability to turn the corner. His motor is really good, so he never gives up on the play. So that's where he can get a lot of his snaps as well, a lot of his sacks as well, those sort of coverage type sacks, which we'll see him get. So, which is what you want in a guy like this. It's just that relentless motor when he's out on the field, because he's not going to be playing every snap. So you want him going at 110% every single time he's out there. So he'll get his sacks that way as well. And also I found that if he wasn't able to get to the quarterback, he was able to swipe at the ball and cause trouble that way as well. So he may not have come up with the sack completely, but he was still able to disrupt the passer as well and make an impact that way. So, yeah, there's a lot to like. There's a little bit to dislike, but I think the upside there is someone I'd be willing to take a chance on as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I'd be willing to, like, all these guys, I'm willing, and for a team that I support that really does need pass rushes, like, I'd be willing to take a swipe at a couple of these guys in the draft. It's just, like you said, you've just got to, maybe for some of them, you might just have to temper what your expectations of them might be compared to some of the guys that we have in our top 5 sort of thing. So,
yeah, like the guys we're looking at here at the moment are sort of, I don't know if any of these guys are going to fall out of the second round, but at worst, I think they're going to be sort of early third round type picks, where most of them kind of, I think, will be gone by sort of top 50 picks kind of thing for mine.
Well, I mean, so let me just pull up the NFL draft order here. Because if you just look at just teams in the order that they go, so really it even starts with the Browns at 2. So the Browns could use another edge rusher opposite Myles Garrett. Won't hurt. The Giants are probably safe. Look, the Patriots, I wouldn't say no. Like, Patriots could use another edge rusher. The Jags could use an edge rusher. The Raiders, yeah, they've got Max Crosby, but I wouldn't say no to them pairing someone up with him as well. The Jets could use one. The Panthers could use one. The Saints could use one. The Bears could probably use someone else as well. Like, you start looking down these teams, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Seahawks. It's sort of, as you keep looking down this list, you keep seeing teams and you go, there are so many teams who could use edge rushers that it wouldn't shock me if our top 15 are gone by the time that second round ends, that second, third round sort of thing. So, yeah, it's just interesting to see that, yes, this is a large amount of edge rushers in this class, but it wouldn't shock us to see all of our top 15s gone within the first 2 rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Just with how many teams need them.
I could see massive run happening in the second round where we're just seeing one guy go after another.
Yeah, me too. JT Tuimoloau, I had him at 12. You had him at 11?
Yeah.
So give me your spiel on JT.
So he's got the perfect size that you want in an edge rusher. 6'4", 265 pounds. He's going to be 22 before the season starts. He just playing alongside Jack Sawyer. You can kind of see they both played with a lot of power. So there wasn't a lot of that quickness from both these guys. But man, when you watch him play with the length that he's got at his size and the power that he has, he was tough to keep contained.
Yeah.
And so he's got good technique to keep the offensive tackles from getting in his frame. So he's got those long arms that keeps sort of the offensive tackles at bay, which allows him to move into his pass rush moves a lot quicker as well. And then, like I said, at his size, he can set the edge against the run game as well. So he's another one of these edges that you're going to have out there on the field for early downs when teams are more inclined to run the ball. He's not going to sort of sit on the sideline while that's happening, and he can make an impact in the run game as well. So that's a big key for him. And then he gets his hands up in the passing lane a lot. So he might not beat the offensive tackle sort of off the line, but he's got the awareness to get his arms up and sort of affect the pass that way as well and keep the quarterback off his mark there. So that's a key as well in his game. So I really like him. I thought, I could have had him top 10 to be honest, but the guy I've got at 10, I just like that a little bit more for the potential there. Whereas I think JT Tuimoloau is more sort of, I think more towards his ceiling than he is at his floor at the moment. So there may not be that sort of growth that some other guys can have there.
Yeah, I was sort of in agreement with most of you. My main reason I didn't think I was ever going to put him into the top 10 after I started watching his film. I just didn't think he had the elite speed and bend in his pass rush. So my main thing is the guys that I've got him, well, I can't say all of them, but like there's some guys that, you've got a lot of power to get into things, but I like the guys who have the ability to win with speed and power. And I just didn't think he had as much of that speed that I saw. It's sort of the same thing with Jack Sawyer. Like, absolutely knows where to be, what to do, be in the right places, but it's just that lack of elite speed that, that knocked him down the list for me, sort of. So, did you have any other
ceiling? So you need that ceiling type guy when you're looking at sort of top 10 pass rushers.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have any other negatives for JT Tuimoloau?
Just that he needs more of a pass rush plan. Like I said, he's more power based than anything else. And you'd like to see him develop sort of more counter moves and sort of spin moves and that sort of thing. So whether he can do that at the next level with different coaching, we'll see. But yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player and consistent player, but it's just that sort of ceiling that's capped with him a little bit more.
Yep. No, I'm in agreement with you there. Now, I'll give you my 10 through 6 here. So at 10, I had Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. At 9, I had Princely Umanmielen from Ole Miss. Then at 8, I had Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M at 8. I had Nick Scourton at 7 from Texas A&M. And I had Michael Williams at 6 out of Georgia.
Okay.
So give me your 10. Give me your 10, and then we can go back and forth on a couple of these guys.
So 10, I've got Landon Jackson as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, like I said, I think the ceiling for Landon Jackson's better than it is for JT.
Yeah.
Number 9, I've got Umanmielen as well. Number 8, I've got Donovan Ezeruaku. Yep. Number 7, I've got Nick Scourton. And number 6, I've got probably the most difficult player in this class to sort of understand where you'll have him in the rankings, and that's Jalen Walker.
Okay. Interesting.
So we've gone few the same, and then
we've got 3 the same and 2 that are completely different.
Yep.
So give me. Let's start with 10 because we'll go 10 and 9 because we had them both in the same part. So give me your Landon Jackson, and then we'll do Princely after that. So give me Landon Jackson first.
All right. So Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, 22-year-old senior. The size is phenomenal and something that I'm super intrigued about. 6'6", 264 pounds. That sort of size off the edge, I always get intrigued about with guys.
Yeah.
And he uses his body pretty well also. Like he's not, I was about to say he's not this awkward sort of guy, but he is. He's absolutely this awkward kind of guy. But it works for him. So it's something that he can use to his advantage because it's not something sort of offensive tackles would be used to dealing with in his movements. So as long as it doesn't get too far out of hand with how awkward he is, I think that can be a major key for him when he's rushing the passer. So it's something he needs to use to his advantage. He's got a pretty well-developed pass rush move set.
Yeah.
So he's not one of these guys where he needs to come into the NFL and develop that. He's already got that developed. And it's just a case of sort of fine-tuning it to when you get to the NFL against this better competition. So I'm looking forward to seeing him do that. He's got a really high motor, plays with a lot of intensity as well. So he's just relentless after the ball. So at his size, to be able to have that sort of motor and relentlessness is massive for him. So, yeah, I really like him. I think the upside for him could be off the charts if he puts it all together, to be honest.
Yeah. I had pretty much the exact same as you with all of them. I did see, just looking up something here, his height, weight, and length puts him in the 90th percentile for edge rushers. So that just says something about his size. So the main worries that I had for him is he's had 2 ACL injuries in the past, one in high school and one early in college. So that, that can create a bit of a question mark on him. I do like him. It's just, we're talking about this, and this is probably why I have him at 10 as well. We're talking about JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, how they weren't explosive athletes. He's decent athlete, but I feel like he's more of like you could sort of see it in the 40 that he did at the combine. He was more of like a build up into speed type of person as opposed to explode into like, he's not like super amazing. It's decent, but it's not like elite first step that really like he just brushes past people. It's more like he needs to build into that speed, and he ends up being pretty quick for his size, but it's just like it's not that explosive that we see from some of these other guys. That's probably why I had him at 10.
Yeah, you want that suddenness off the snap, and he doesn't quite possess that. So,
yeah, like I said, I really like him, but I couldn't really put him too much higher than 10.
yeah, it's going to be interesting where he goes because I think he can find himself going sort of late first in this draft with some of the
Yeah,
teams that
I
are
think
there.
I wouldn't be shocked. This was actually brought up by one of our good friends here at Hoove, Mr. Hoove Tube. If you find him, he's part of Optimus as well. He said something like that Landon Jackson's met with Buffalo like 8 times or something. Like he's spoken with them a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up in Buffalo, to be perfectly honest, at the back end of that first round.
Yeah, I can't see him going too late, like falling too far in the second round at least. I don't even think he'll get past sort of Kansas City, to be honest.
No.
And you
Yeah,
pair
I
him
think he's
alongside George Karlaftis.
yeah. So we go from him to both our number 9s in Princely Uman Ellen. Now, Princely, I've got that I had that he was a very twitchy guy and really good at changing directions. Like he's got that twitchiness that Landon Jackson didn't have. So hence why I have him that one spot ahead. He's got long arms. I don't have the measurement in front of me, but he's just got really long arms, which is pretty insane. I'll just have a look at his.
I think it was just a tick over 34 inch off the top of my head, but don't hold me to that yet.
The crazy thing is, it felt like it was 33 and 7/8. I think I saw.
Oh, so just under 34. Okay.
But oh no, sorry, that was after the Senior Bowl. It was 34 and a quarter. Sorry, that measurement was the one that came out. That 33 and 7/8 was before the Senior Bowl and the Combine, and it's actually looking at what I can see now. It's 34 and a quarter.
A lot of these guys must have got on the torture rack and started stretching their arms a little bit after the Senior Bowl because there was a lot of differences in some of the measurements, which is always crazy to see.
Yeah, look, I really like him. I thought that he was, because of like his speed and everything as well. So looking at this, it's not like elite speed. You sort of, a lot of these feel like they were faster than what they were, but his 40-yard dash was 4.72 seconds, but it was his 10-yard split was 1.62. And it's these things that he's got these athletic traits. He's got this speed, and it's one of these things that I really like in these guys. It's like, okay, you are going to be able to play in different roles on the field nearly all the time because of your athleticism, your speed. Like it was one of those things I really like. Then now there are things that need to be cleaned up. I've got here, his footwork needs to be a little bit cleaned up. He felt a bit erratic sometimes in his movement. So, that sort of takes away from some of his things. But I've got a couple other little bits and pieces. But give me your thoughts on Princely because, like I said, there's a lot of things that I liked about him. I thought that I was looking at the measurements. I thought his arms felt longer, like were going to be longer than the 34.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it looks like one of those things when you watch him on tape, it's like, okay, this guy's got to have 36, 37 inch arms. Like, it feels like he's one of these guys who could, it's one of the sayings that I heard on one of the other podcasts, his pockets are at his knees because that's how far down they've got to be. But that's sort of what I felt like with him. But give me your thoughts on Princely.
So he's a bit of a weird one in the fact that he's 6'4" He's only 244 pounds. So he doesn't have that mass that some of the other guys have. So he needs to work on his hands more because even with those long arms, the offensive tackles can still get into his body a lot. And when he doesn't have the strength because of the lack of size, he's not able to get off the blockers as much as some of these other guys. And when you're purely a finesse pass rusher, you can't get bogged down on blocks because you're just completely out of the play then. You're not going to make an impact in the play. So, yeah, just needs to work on that a little bit. Needs more in the pass rush toolkit, I think, considering that's his main go. Like I said, he's not going to make an impact in the running game.
Yeah.
So he needs to really key in on the passing game and just make all his impact there. So, but like we said, he's got the good length. He's got the speed that makes him hard to contain on the edge. He can set the offensive tackle up and then dip inside. So he's got that move in his toolkit to be able to get to the quarterback inside. He's just one of those guys where if he can continue to develop his pass rushing moves and just pick up his game in the run game as well, he's going to make a massive impact to the NFL. It's just how quickly can he do it? He's not going to be that guy that comes in and makes that immediate impact non-stop every snap. So
that's sort of what I was thinking too. I was thinking like he's not going to be that guy who comes in as a rookie and has 12 sacks as a rookie, and that's his worst season that he has is like 12 sacks. Like I'm not expecting that at all. But, you know, I think he could be one of those guys who does enough in his rookie year to show those flashes of potential to go, okay, we've got something here. We just need to hone his skills and work on him moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. The upside there is well worth taking a chance on, sort of that first round there.
Yeah. So who was your number 8? I forgot your number 8.
Donovan Ezeraku.
Okay, so give me your Donovan Ezeraku because I had him at 5.
Okay, you had him 5. That's fair. Yeah. I thought you would have had him thereabouts. So
yeah,
the thing that held me back on having him any higher is the size is confusing to me. So he's 6'2", 248 pounds, which he doesn't have that sort of height and length that other guys have, which is going to hold him back a little bit. He's going to have to win in other ways as well. So he's not going to be able to dominate sort of the offensive tackles at their size when he's 6'2" kind of thing. You want your edge to be like taller, longer than that. So that's the only reason I've got him down a little bit, to be honest. He still needs to obviously develop more explosiveness, which at his size you want from him. That's how he's going to be able to win a lot more in the NFL. So he just needs to develop that when he gets there. But the strengths for me, he's got good bend when he gets around the corner, which you'd hope so at his size. That's his big advantage that he has at 6'2". So the fact that he's got that is a positive. And he can get under the offensive tackle with his agility as well. So he's going to find ways to get to the quarterback, even against the really good offensive tackles. At his size, it's just he needs to utilize it to the best of his ability nonstop because he doesn't kind of have that length that other guys have. But, yeah, he's got decent arms and the power behind it as well. So as long as he doesn't have the tackles getting into his body as much, then he'll be able to sort of use his pass rush moves a lot more. Then it's just that initial sort of block. If he can beat that, then gets the offensive tackle off their mark, and then he can put his moves to the test then. So I think he's got really high upside. He's a guy I really like.
Yeah.
And I think my sort of 8, 7, 6 kind of guys are all sort of interchangeable as well. So yeah, interested to see how he goes. I think there's a lot of people around the Packers that like him, but I don't think they'll look at him just due to the size that they like normally for their edges. But yeah, it's someone that if your team ends up drafting him sort of from, I guess, kind of the 20th pick onwards to early second at the latest, you're going to be happy to have him on your team.
Yeah. I I kind of like him. Obviously, that's why I have him 5. I really like that. The reason why I had him so much higher is his first step was incredibly explosive. I thought, like, he just seemed to just jump off. Like, it was one of those things that, when it feels like sometimes that the offensive line, when they don't move and the center goes to, the offensive line just sort of stands there, and then all of a sudden the defenders part. Like, it just felt like that with
Yeah.
him so much that first step just to get him off the ball, I had, super consistent effort all the time. Like, it never seemed to be like oh, look, I'll just take this play off because, he just was go, go, go all the time. There was noted here from PFF too that I got rid of the number off of here, but it was a very low, like, missed tackle percentage. I can't find it now. I've cut it off my notes here, but it was like really low. Like, so he's not a guy who's going to miss a heap of tackles. The one thing I did say, I know like you said, he is a bit smaller, not as heavy as some of these other guys, but I thought that he was able to maximize his weight with, like, maximize his leverage to combat some of those, some of those things, like you said, the less height, less weight, all those sorts of things. But he was able to make up for it with his leverage and how he was able to use that. So, but like you said, I pretty much had the same concerns that you had were, like his size, because he's not going to be a guy that if he was to come up against the Eagles, where they have the pulling and the lead blockers and the pulling guards and centers and all that sort of stuff on the run game, he's not going to be the guy that you want to take on those, incoming Jordan Mailata type people who are 360 pounds running full head of steam at him. Like, he's not the guy for that role. But no, I really like him. I was trying to find some of these guys. I've found player comps that either came to me or I liked them and then sort of refined certain people. Here's one I don't actually mind. This isn't mine. This is from Lance Zierlein from NFL.com. His NFL player comp, and I really kind of like it seeing it, is Yannick Ngakoue.
Oh, okay.
I don't mind that comp, like, because it felt like Yannick Ngakoue had a couple of those really amazing seasons in Baltimore or whatever. And then, for a couple of years afterwards, he moved to a couple different teams and performed, but was never like okay, this is the best guy out on the field. But he was still one of those guys that you'd see him and go, okay, he's making plays, he's having an impact on the game. And that's how I sort of could see that maybe Donovan Ezeraku could be for, even early in his career, he could be that guy who he's not the guy that everyone's going to go, okay, we really have to just game plan our whole game plan around him and stopping him. But he's going to be there enough that it's like, okay, we can't just completely ignore him like we can some other people.
Yeah. I agree. He's going to make an impact at the next level.
So you had him at 8. I had
8.
Shamar Stewart. So I had Shamar Stewart at 8. I'm just looking up his details because some of these guys, you have to apologize. I didn't write all their notes down, which is annoying. Okay, so Shamar Stewart, 6'5", 267 pounds, 34 and 1/8 inch arms, 4.59 second 40-yard dash with a 1.58 second 10-yard split, a 40-inch vertical jump, and a 10 foot 11 broad jump. So just an uber athletic freak of nature. This is the guy who has the top tier explosiveness. Yeah, the reason why I have him so low is the college production. So he had 1.5 sacks every season for his 3 seasons he played college. So just looking here, his play. So he played all 12 games in 2022, had 3.5 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks. 2023, he played in 13 games, had 1.5 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Then this season just gone, he was third team All SEC, started 12 games, had 5.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. It's just not what you want. They're like, how many NFL quality starters and elite guys had so little production in college that you could then go. So I brought this up as well, and once again, shout out who said this, but he said Daniil Hunter he only had 1.5 sacks his last year in college at LSU. But I said the big difference was that in Daniil Hunter's last season of college, he had more tackles for loss in his last season of college than what Shamar Stewart had for 3 years at college. So Daniil Hunter had 13.5 tackles for loss in his last year, and Shamar Stewart's had 12.5 or 12 for his entire college career. So he's got all the explosiveness, all of the ability to bend and get around the edge and all that sort of stuff. But he, just looking at some of the cons, the offensive tackles, they just get their hands on him first, like all the time. He just doesn't get his hands on them to try and knock them back. They are always the ones who get the first on him. He needs to refine his pass rushing moves, which is why I don't think that's being harsh considering it's a guy who only had 1.5 sacks every season for 3 years in college. He felt like too much of a look, I'm just going to find the ball and go for it kind of person, as opposed to maybe setting up, okay, well, they've run these last bunch of plays this way. I'm just going to anticipate that maybe I can do this instead. It was do you know what I mean? Like, it was sort of like a see ball, get ball type of person, as opposed to some of these other guys who just go, right, I'm just going to anticipate this is where it's going to go next.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back. I just can't get past his lack of production in college. But it's like you never see these guys turn into elite edge rushers in the NFL when they can't do it in college.
Yeah, it's one of the most confusing things I can remember in this draft. And I, as a Packers fan, am going to find every little bit of positive I can about Shamar Stewart, because if he's there at pick 23, the Packers are 100% picking him because he screams everything they look for in a first-round pick. Now,
look,
I'm going to put...
before you do that, I would take him at pick 23. I would not take him at pick 8 to Carolina like a lot of people are saying.
I was going to say, there's been a lot of mocks where people have looked at him at Carolina, and
I couldn't take him.
You can't have someone with that lack of production as a top 10 pick.
No.
But I'm going to put down the lack of production. I'm going to put it on the Texas A&M coaching staff, because you look at the players they had on that defensive line, and they should have been the most dominant defense in the entire college football landscape. And they just weren't. All the guys along that defensive line, their production was lacking compared to what they should have had. So I'm going to be the glass half full kind of guy with him, and hope that it's more a coaching issue than it is just complete lack of being able to finish plays and lack of production from Shamar Stewart. I should say I have him as number 5.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was right on that edge at number 5 there. He's basically, when you look at him and when you look at his traits, he is what you look for in an edge defender. He just has the ideal traits for an edge guy. The burst off the line was good, but like you said, the offensive tackles get to him first way too often.
Yeah.
And then for his size, he's got good bend as well. And the speed to power when he's rushing the quarterback is at a high level, which you need for someone his size and expect. And then he should be getting moved along the defensive line a lot and trying to look for those mismatches as well. So you can move him inside on certain passing downs and just have that speed team out there. So I think need to utilise him better there to get those mismatches for him. And then he can set the edge as a run defender as well, really well.
Yeah.
So there's so much to like about his game. There's so much that screams sort of top 10 pick as far as traits wise go. And then I just have no idea why he didn't finish plays and get to the quarterback more than what he did. There's obviously that much room for improvement there with him that I hope he puts it together. Even if he's not on the Packers, I hope he puts it all together because he could be one of the elite defensive ends in the game if he does.
Yeah. Look, do you know who my player comp was for him? And it's probably not going to be someone that you're really going to like, but I think it is someone you are going to like at the same time. He was very Rashawn Gary to me.
Yeah.
Like, can you take Rashawn Gary but less production? That's what I saw him as.
At pick 23, you can, and hope he develops more than what we've been able to develop our edge guys at the moment.
But this is the thing, like, so I could see them, like we said, pick 23. I'm all for. I struggle to see him as a top 10 pick when majority of the teams that are picking in the top 10 don't want the project player to go, oh, look, we're going to pick this guy because of his traits, and we're going to hope that he turns into the guy that we want him to turn into. Like, if you're picking in the top 10, like Carolina has for the last couple of years, you don't want to pick a guy and hope that he turns into a good player. You want to try and grab one of these guys that are higher up the list, who've got the production in college, who've got the traits as well, the talent, that sort of stuff. That's where I just struggle a little bit with him, is going like, it's happened a lot lately. Like you said, there's a lot of mocks that are going around that have him going at 8 to Carolina. And I personally I can't see that being a good fit for him to go, let's put you on here where your edge rusher pairing is him and Jadeveon Clowney or him and DJ Wanham. He needs to be on a team that has that has like an elite edge rusher on the opposite side who he can work off of. That's where, like, he'll be gone by them, but Vegas Raiders, like if he was there in the second round, to me, Las Vegas would be a good spot to have him because he's got Christian Wilkins, he's got Malcolm Kuntz there, he's got Max Crosby, like he's got those guys to work off of, sort of thing. So, I can understand why you have him 5, and I can understand why people have him in their top 5s and things. But for me, I just don't want to bank on traits and hope that he turns into the pass rusher you want him to be with that little production in college.
Yeah, that production just, like I said, makes no sense to me for what you look at him to be. So he's probably one of the most intriguing guys in this first round, to be honest.
Yeah. We both had Nick Scorton at 7. So give me your thoughts on him.
So another Texas A&M guy along the defensive line. He came from Purdue, and all of a sudden he put on like 30 pounds. And he was playing it around that 285-pound mark. And you just watch him play this year and you're like, what happened? What changed? Like, you know what changed, but why? They completely changed, obviously, his sort of game plan with him from what he used to be at Purdue. So there was obviously that focus on having him be bigger and playing more along the defensive line. But to put on 30 pounds and then lose a lot of the athleticism and traits that put you on the radar of teams going back another year from there was really confusing to me. So he's another one of these guys where the projection to the NFL, he's got a high ceiling, It's just, can he get there? Because he shows a
Mm,
lot of flashes of being a really good player. And he's one of those guys where teams are going to be intrigued by him because of that ability that he showed rushing the passer and the ability that he showed sort of moving up and down the defensive line. So, number 7 for me, there's a lot to like. He's aggressive, like the power is aggressive from him.
yeah.
So, you want guys like that along the defensive line that are just going to take it to the offensive tackles.
Hmm.
And so, I really like that. Powerful at the point of contact. He's got a good change of direction as well. For the size he was playing at, was impressive, but that'll improve even more now that he's slimmed back down as well. So he came in at
Yeah.
257 pounds at the weigh-ins, so that's more where he's going to be sort of at the NFL, that sort of 257 to 265 pound mark, which is what you want for him to keep that athleticism. He's got a pretty decent array of pass rush moves and counters already that just need to
Hmm.
be developed a little bit more. So that puts him in good frame when he comes into the NFL. And then he can win on the inside with spin moves as well. And at his size, that impressed the hell out of me. So he slimmed down a lot more
Yeah.
now as well. So he'll be able to do that even more, or try to do that even more in the NFL against really good offensive tackles. So, yeah, the traits there are positive for him. It's just having him play at that weight this year sort of skewed what the expectations were, I think, for him coming out.
Yeah, and that to me, the only thing that I could see with it is that he got to Texas A&M, and they sort of went, "Look, your ability to be able to play as like an outside linebacker edge or a defensive end could be really appealing to a lot of people because you could, you know, your flexibility, versatility, whatever you want to call it, that could be really handy in the NFL to be able to have a guy who you could go, right, we could draft him as a 3-4 defensive end, or we could draft him as an edge rusher. He could do both. So he's done that to try and help his draft stock, which I think in the end, he's then probably gone the whole season and gone, do you know what? Not for me. Like I need to be
Yeah.
back at the two. I need to be back at that 257, 260 mark where I get my explosiveness back. So that's the only thing that I could, for me, that I could sort of put it down to is maybe it was like a coaching direction thing to try and say, hey, like let's bulk you up. Let's have you have that ability that you could kick inside if needs be, or we could leave you as an edge rusher. To me, yeah, the more explosive, the better, I think, for him. Pretty much everything you said, I had the exact same for everything. It's one of those things you want to see. To me, he's going to be a guy who I'm very intrigued on seeing in the league, just to see how teams use him and whether he does have that, being at 257, 260 mark, if that explosiveness is there and it just makes you sort of sit up when you see him out on the field and go, oh, that's what we're hoping for. Like,
Yeah.
that's sort of what I'm hoping to see, because he's a guy I have liked for the season. I've like since probably before the college season started. I was sort of put onto him a little bit to watch him, and I've been sort of keen to see how he was. But we have these irrational likes of people and why we like them and things like that. So yeah, to me, he's just one of these guys that I had that I was like, yeah, I hope he does well in the NFL wherever he ends up.
Yeah. Keen to
I
see
did
how he
I
goes.
did have a I did have a player comp for him that I liked too, and it was unfortunately it's a guy that the Panthers have to come up against a fair bit. But my player comp for him was Cam Jordan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that.
So
That's a 15-year
like
starter in the NFL. So if you can get that from next door,
exactly,
you're
like
laughing. Yeah.
yeah, and like okay, I didn't have player comps for all these people, but these sometimes are just guys that you watch certain things and you can see how they move and how they play, and you sort of go, that reminds me of like this. Da, da, da. To me, that was watching him. It was like, I'm not saying that he's going to be Cam Jordan moving forward, but to me, watching him, it just gave me those. Okay, this is my Cam Jordan vibe just watching him straight away, just how he was moving and stuff like that. So, now my number 6 I will go with is Michael Williams out of Georgia. Now, what did you think of Michael Williams, and where have you got him before I go into what I say?
I'm going to leave my ranking out of it at the moment.
Okay.
We'll wait for him. But, all right. So, Michael Williams out of Georgia, 6'5", 260 pounds. He doesn't turn 21 until June. So, he's going to be 20 years old when he's drafted.
Yeah.
Like, the sky's the limit for this guy.
Mm.
And so you look at the size, it is perfect for the NFL as a defensive end. He's got long arms, so he's able to keep the offensive tackles off him. He's got the strength to go with it. He can play multiple positions along the defensive line. He's got good burst to get out of his stance. He's just got all these traits that you want to see in a defensive end, and he's 20 years old. Like, he shows the power when given room to be able to build up the speed there. So if the offensive tackle gets to him first, obviously he's going to struggle, like most guys will. But he's also got the moves to be able to counter that as well. He just needs to develop them a lot more than what he has currently. But he's 20 years old. Like, he's not going to have that at the moment. Only the truly elite guys have that sort of thing at 20 years old. So there is so much to like about this guy. And there's things that he needs to work on, obviously. But for me, the high upside of his ceiling along with the traits, he's one of the best guys in this draft for mine.
Yeah, so look, the reason why I had him at 6, like I had that, he's got the build, like we were saying, 6'5", 260, 34 and 3/8 inch arms there, 10 and a quarter inch hands. So great size, exactly what you want. I had explosive first step. He had his motor was just insane. Like, just go all the time, all the way through the whistle. I had that he was a very good run defender. And one of these things, it's one of the only times you can get away with saying things like this, but I thought he was incredibly violent on the field with his moves and stuff, which is a good thing. Like, this, it's one of the few times that you can actually say this is a good thing. Like you said, a couple of the down things that I knocked him down a few pegs for me is that when I was watching, he was very consistently one of the last defensive linemen to get out of his stance. Like, he just was that snap slower than everyone else from when I was watching. And I know that sometimes people can say, like, that's being a little bit picky, but as we were saying, in the NFL, holding the ball for 2.6 seconds is that's okay, you've had an eternity to throw the ball. So a lot of quarterbacks are getting that out in 2 seconds to 2.3 seconds sort of thing. So if you are that half a second slower out of your stance than everyone else, you are now at a disadvantage to get to the quarterback. So it's like, this might seem picky, but it's also one of these things that some of these other guys that I had ahead of him, I just liked personally more. That's not saying that I don't think that he could be a top 5 talent or, higher up, but there are guys that I just like more than him. That is the reason why I had him at 6. But I also I just thought too, he just needed to develop some more counter moves for his pass rush skill set.
Yeah,
like if he just refines, it's like I said, at the end of the day, to me, if he just refines his pass rush skill set, then yeah, I'm all on board. Like, I hope that he, if it was one of those things where Carolina ends up with him at 8, granted, there are other guys that I personally like better, but I'm not going to be throwing my remote at my TV screen because they drafted him. So,
yeah, you'd be happy to have him on your team, especially at the age that he is with what he's shown already.
Yeah. So give me, now that we've done, so what was your, so just, who was your 6 again?
My
It
6
was
was
Jalen
Jalen
Walker,
Walker.
wasn't it?
Yeah. So I had
Yeah.
Michael Williams
Okay.
as my number 2.
Okay.
So Michael
Wow.
Williams is
That's,
my
yeah.
number 2 guy. So
Yeah.
like I said, I'm extremely high on him.
Yeah.
All right. So number
So,
6, Jalen
yeah,
Walker.
give me your
Where did
Jalen
you have
Walker.
Jalen Walker?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
I got a feeling we're almost going to flip positions between Michael Williams and Jalen Walker between us.
No,
All right.
but
Do you
we'll
want me to
see.
go
We'll
on Jalen
see.
Walker?
Yeah, yeah. Give me your Jalen Walker.
Okay. So probably outside of Travis Hunter, Jalen Walker's the most versatile player in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
He probably projects as a off-ball linebacker higher than what he does as an edge rusher. But the fact that he can do both and do both of them at a pretty damn high level, to be honest, is really impressive. He's only 21 years old still, 6'1", 243, which is probably the biggest knock on him, to be honest. As an edge rusher, is just he doesn't have that size. Like 6'1" is a bad way to put it, but it's tiny for an edge rusher.
Yeah.
So he's really going to be at a disadvantage there if he's going to be that full-time sort of edge rusher guy, which I don't think he is in the NFL. And I think teams would be stupid to sort of pigeonhole him like that, which I don't think they will. But purely as a edge rusher, that's why I've got him knocked down to number 6 for mine. It's just going to be a lot for him to overcome to be that sort of dominant top 5 edge rusher at his size. But he's got really good hand moves. He's got an explosive first step, gets off the line in a blink of an eye. And then for his size, like I said, 6'1", 243, as an edge defender, he's got really good power in the run game, which was surprising to me. I think that's probably a lot to do with him as an off-ball linebacker helping him there, but he uses it really well as an edge defender.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that versatility of his is an amazing attribute to have for a team where they can just have him play all over the field. So there is a lot to like about Jalen Walker. There's just a few things that are concerning for me when you look at him from a edge rusher sort of scope.
Yeah. So I am going to give you who my player comp was for Jalen Walker. So I've seen a few, but I settled on a guy who, once again, look, so the couple that I saw were Hassan Reddick, and then the next one that I saw was Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to give you a guy who last year, so the last 2 seasons, this man has had, just looking at this here, this man's had 21 and a half sacks over the last 2 seasons. This guy, who his player comp is, at his combine, yes, he was 6'3", but he weighed 243 pounds. And Jalen Walker, what did you say he was? 242, was it?
243. Yep,
243. So the exact same weight, but this other guy was 2 inches taller than him. So hang on a sec. I just want to check one other thing while I'm talking about it, just to see if I've. So he had 31 and 5/8 inch arms, and Jalen Walker has 32-inch arms. So he's actually, so Jalen Walker has longer arms. They were the same weight, slightly smaller. My player comp for Jalen Walker is Kyle Van Noy.
Yeah.
They were same size. Like Kyle Van Noy, that was at the combine. Kyle Van Noy now is 257 pounds. So the weight side of things, I'm not as concerned about because he can put on weight to bulk up that little bit. And I think once you get to an NFL team who has a nutritionist and who has a a weight room, and in the sense of like, okay, yeah, you've got him at college, but at college you've still got school, you've still got
Yeah.
classes to attend to. Here, your job is football. So,
Yeah.
I love Jalen Walker. He is the guy who, if Carolina was going edge rusher at 8, he's a guy who I want. So I think he could actually play on the edge full time. But to me, he would be a guy who probably in his first season, you split him between off-ball linebacker and edge rusher, like he did in college. Like he played a lot in college at both positions. So to me, he's a guy who I would use at both of them. I had like obviously good size to play inside or outside linebacker in the NFL. I think he is actually a natural pass rusher off the edge. It's just like you said, his size may worry some people to deploy him there full time, which to me is a reason why I would have him play linebacker and some edge rush, pretty much like Frankie Louvu, what he was used for once he got to Carolina and now in Washington. He's used over the field. So to me, that's like a Jalen Walker type thing. I like him. I think he could be, like I said, maybe not his rookie year, maybe in his second or third year, he could be deployed as a full-time edge rusher. And yeah, I pretty much all the positives that you had for him, I had too. You know, I've got the same sort of concerns for him about the size and things, but I'm a little bit more optimistic that he could actually be used full-time, especially too when seeing that I did have my player comp as Kyle Van Noy, and to actually see that Kyle Van Noy and him were very much the same size at the combine, and now you see Kyle Van Noy's another 17 pounds, 15 pounds heavier now than what he is. And Kyle Van Noy's been a very successful edge rusher in the NFL.
Yeah. No, I like it. Like I said, I'm high on Jalen Walker. I just had guys purely from an edge rusher standpoint above him. I think, though, when you look at it, so if you're looking at it just from an edge rusher standpoint, I've got him lower than some of the other guys. But if we were to put out a big board as overall players,
he's probably higher.
He'd probably be higher than a lot of them because of that versatility as well. So for this sort of thought exercise, the fact that he is so versatile and probably, to me, a better off-ball linebacker than he is edge defender at the moment, that's why I've got him knocked down in my rankings personally. But I 100% agree with what you say. Like, I'm not fighting against that. So I think a lot of these guys can really be flipped fairly easily, to be honest. And wouldn't surprise me if the rankings are so different as well.
So not to step on our other show where we do our linebacker rankings, but Jalen Walker to me is my linebacker 2 in that class. So if he was just to be deployed as a linebacker, I would have him as linebacker 2 in that class. If he was just to be edge rusher, I would have him in the top 5 like I have him now, if he was just one or the other sort of thing. So that, like you said, that versatility to be able to play linebacker and edge, to me, like I said, it's a Kyle Van Noy, it's a Frankie Louvu type of role that I could see for him in the NFL. And the way that I look at it too is Frankie Louvu came to Carolina and was a specialist, like a special teams player to start with, who ended up having to play due to injuries and how bad Carolina were on defense. And now you look at him and he's been, ever since he was in Carolina and now in Washington, Frankie Louvu is like an absolute star on the defense as a guy who can just be deployed all over the field by the defensive coordinator. So I would like to see Jalen Walker be used a bit like that when he gets to the NFL. So give me now, since we've done that, give me your 5 through 1, because I know we're going to have the same number 1. I'm 99% certain we've got the same number 1. So
every single person that does this has the same number 1.
Okay, so actually, let's go. Wait, before you do 5 through 1, give me your 5. I'll give you my 5. Then we'll go 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2.
Well, my 5's Shamar Stewart.
So I had Donovan Ezeraku as my number 5.
Yeah.
So who's your number 4?
Number 4 is Mike Green out of Marshall.
So he's my number 4 as well.
Okay. All right. That's
so
good.
Who was your number 3?
James Pierce Jr.
So I've got Jalen Walker at 3.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
So then that leaves you with Michael at 2.
Yeah,
And I've got James Pierce Jr. as 2.
I like it. I like it.
So which then leaves, which is no shock to anyone, Abdul Carter as number 1.
Yeah.
So go through your guys through. Oh, we did Shamar Stewart already. So Mike Green, give me Mike Green.
So Mike Green out of Marshall, 6'3", 251 pounds. So there was concern about his weight before Senior Bowl combine type or Senior Bowl, but he's got that up to 251, which is massive for him. 22 years old. From that sort of small school Marshall, how much of that production that he had was because he wasn't playing in the top tier sort of conference? But then you see him at the Senior Bowl, and he dominated some of the big names. So, yeah, it's not just a case of he dominated against small school. He showed at the Senior Bowl that he was there to mix it with the big guys. So he is relentless after the quarterback, shows really good counter moves and hand moves, and then he gets around the edge extremely well. Just great burst off the line, and then plays with good leverage as well. So you'll see him bending around the corner. And then even for his size, so there was talk of him playing at, I think it was about sub 240 pounds, like 236 pounds or something. It was expected that he was playing at. But he showed really good power at that size as well. So he just ticks so many of the boxes that you look for in an edge defender. So, yeah, number 4, he's really going to be interesting, I think, where he goes, because he for us, we don't see it a lot, especially at smaller schools. But for me personally, he kind of came from nowhere this year. I hadn't really known anything about him before this year.
No.
And then he just exploded, and you're like, okay, you start hearing this name more, and you're like, okay. And then there's another game with plenty of sacks. It's like, oh, okay, here's a guy you need to start watching more of. And then I think it was Connor Rogers on the Stock Exchange show that really put me on him, and he started talking about him a lot and fell in love with him. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a guy I really need to hone in on and watch a lot. And there's so much to like about his game. So you can see why a lot of the big-time draft analysts were all over him pretty early on.
Yeah. The only factor / elephant in the room as to why he may ended up getting drafted later than some of these people is there was the sexual assault allegations that were out and about. So some teams may just look at that and just completely wipe him off their board because they don't want to have to deal with those sorts of questions going forward. So there are those off-field issues that could potentially drop him down. But if we were just going pure talent based off the field, that's where we would have Mike Green on ours.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the way we have to do it, especially us here. We don't.
Yeah.
We can look into things a lot, but we don't have that sort of news cycle where it's in our face all the time. So we don't know the full story about things unless it all comes out completely. So for this exercise for us, especially from my point of view, I was especially looking at it without sort of having that factor in because, again, we don't know all the details. And the same thing would be true for James Pierce Jr. as well. So for me, for this, it's purely on traits and play. Nothing more sort of outside football sort of comes into it as far as rankings go.
Yeah.
For mine anyway. So, yeah, it's just tough to kind of delve into that and have it affect your rankings without knowing full details kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, we've just gone just straight based off the field, what we've seen on film, and just based off of that, as opposed, like we said, this would be one of those things. Once again, if we did know a bit more and things like that, and we were doing a big board, that's when potentially you could drop him down the big board based off of things that you were hearing, etc., etc. Because we're just going based purely off of on-field production, that's where we've got him there. So we both have him at number 4. My player comp for him was Alex Highsmith from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's who I saw when I
Yeah,
saw him
okay.
play. Just
Interesting.
it gets overshadowed a fair bit because of TJ Watt, but when you actually just sit there and watch Alex Highsmith play, he's just some
Oh,
of these
really good
games
player, yeah.
he's just unblockable. Like you watch him in some games and you're like, I know, granted, that is yes because you've got TJ Watt on the other side, but he's a good enough player in his own right that he can be, yeah, spoken about there. So,
Yeah.
you have James Pearce Jr. at 3, and I have him at 2.
Yes.
So
I
you go first. You
honestly,
go. Give me your James Pearce Jr.
it was so close between Michael Williams and James Pearce Jr., to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I think the traits that Michael Williams has shown are the same traits that James Pearce Jr. has shown a lot of.
Yeah.
And he's doing it at 20 pounds heavier. So he's got that prototypical size more so than James Pearce Jr. And that's the only reason I had him over at 2 over James Pearce Jr., to be honest. I could have easily had James Pearce Jr. at number 2. He's been one of my favourite players this whole season, and I've been really high on him as well. So it's no surprise that we both have him top 3, to be honest.
Yeah. So if we look at some of the James Pearce Jr.'s stats, so at the combine, he ran a 4.47 40-yard dash with a 1.56 second 10-yard split. So just truly elite speed and athleticism just there in itself. Looking at some of the details of his bio, he was in high school, he was a top 15 national prospect. So not just like top 15 edge rusher or top 15 in his state. Across all of America in high school, he was a top 15 recruit. So looking at 2022, he played 13 games, had 2 sacks. 2023, he 13 games, 28 tackles, an interception return for a touchdown, 2 forced fumbles. And he led in 2023, he was first team all SEC with 14 and a half tackles for loss and had 10 sacks in his second season in college. This year, he was first team all SEC with 13 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. So once, like the last 2 seasons, once he started, he was playing more. Just over the last 2 seasons, he had 27.5 tackles for loss and 17.5 sacks in the last 2 seasons. So super twitchy, explosive, quick off the ball, fast hands. He just had great. I thought he had really good to great anticipation of the snap count. So that sometimes led to him just exploding off the ball because he was able to anticipate the snap count, get there. I had like that he had great speed, pursuit speed as well. So chasing down running backs, things like that. The cons, of course, were the fact to me that yes, when his weigh in here, he was 245 pounds at 6'5". So he's just that little bit slight for his size as well compared to some of the other people. And I guess too, to me, he isn't like a super versatile guy that you could use like a Jalen Walker where you could put him, in multiple different spots. But I think what he does as an edge rusher outweighs that type of flexibility position player. So I've ever since I was put on to James Pearce Jr., he was a guy who I loved watching him out on the field. Like I said, as we mentioned before with Mike Green, there's some off-field issues which we don't really know about that we can comment on. But he is one of these guys that when I watched him, my player comp for him, a lot of people just their first player comp that came into their head was Brian Burns. To me, my player comp that I had for him was Alden Smith.
Yeah.
Like to me, James Pearce Jr. does have that ability that if he were to, whatever off-field issues get put to the side and he is just concentrating on football, to me, he's one of these guys in the football that you just go, like, I need to game plan for James Pearce Jr. because he will break us apart if we don't. That's how I see him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, when you say player comps, Alden Smith, from memory, he was at least 10 pounds heavier. Was he 255 or 260?
Let me look.
I think it was about 6'4", 255 off memory. But he was she's going back a bit, but I think he was a 7th overall pick to the 49ers.
Let me have a look.
I wouldn't be
So
surprised. Oh yeah,
at the combine, Alden Smith was 263.
Oh, so it was above 260. Okay.
Yeah, so he's more that Michael Williams type of spot, but his
it's
play style,
similar game, similar style game. So
yeah, and you're right. It was the 7th overall pick that he was when he was drafted. But then, like we said, if we look at his stats, his first couple of seasons, so his first year in the NFL, he had 14 sacks. And then his second year in the NFL, he had 19 and a half sacks.
I think
Alden
he was
Smith, so.
early on in his career, he was utilized purely as a pass rush specialist. Get out there and just attack the quarterback. And I think that's what we're going to see from James Pierce Jr. as well. And I've got, as one of the strengths for James Pierce Jr., which surprised me, is he can set the edge in the run game pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting when I was watching his tape. And it just caught my eye that it's like, okay, he's got that in his bag. So he can spend like that first down, second down on the field consistently as well. So he's not just that pure pass rush specialist where he's not going to see that early down work. So he's going to see a lot of time on the field early on, I think. But it's just, the size at the height, can he fill out the frame more to be able to take on those big offensive tackles and not get swallowed up by them when they get to him? Like if they get hands on him at the moment coming into the NFL, I think you're going to see him struggle a lot.
Yeah.
So, but he does have those counter moves where he can sort of offset that a lot as well. So, and he's got pretty decent power when he gets that speed to power going. So, like the downside of him is the sort of slight frame, but the upside of him is massive. He could be probably the pass rusher with the highest amount of upside in this entire draft. And that's
except for our guy that we have. I was going to say, except for the guy that we have as number one in my eyes.
Well, yeah. I think ceiling-wise, I think James Pierce Jr. is damn close to Abdul Carter. Floor-wise, it's not even close. So
to me, it feels like James Pierce Jr.'s ceiling is all-pro type of guy. To me, Abdul Carter's ceiling is best player in the NFL type of ceiling. Or best defensive player in the NFL,
defensive player, yeah. I know what you mean.
Like, so to me, that's the only difference. Like, I'm not saying that James Pierce Jr.'s ceiling of a consistent all-pro is bad, but I'm just saying, like, the difference to me is that the ability for Abdul Carter, who, would it shock me in 5 years' time that everyone sits there and talks about Abdul Carter the way that we spoke about Myles Garrett for years, like, your Aaron Donald type of guys on defense for years, your Chris Joneses? Like, to me, he could be, in 5 years, I would not be shocked if Abdul Carter is up there mentioned in that type of thing with the Micah Parsons as like, okay, which Penn State edge rusher is actually better between Abdul Carter and Micah Parsons? Like, that would not shock me whatsoever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, since we're talking about Abdul Carter, do you want to give me your rundown on Abdul Carter before we end the show?
All right. So 6'3", 250 pounds. So the size is good. He uses it well. Relentless pass rusher. The first step is one of the best you'll see. So it's not often he's sort of getting contacted by the offensive tackle and getting stalled. He has that explosive quickness where the offensive tackle is on the back foot straight away against him. And then the agility and change of direction is up there with elite sort of level. And then his spin move inside is lethal. when he gets that going, it's impossible to stop.
Yeah.
So the closing burst on the quarterback, so he can close that ground really quickly as well. So he's got everything you look for in a pass rusher, edge defender. It's why he's being spoken about in conversation for the number 1 overall pick as well. If Tennessee
Yeah.
didn't need a quarterback or someone was going to trade up with him.
Yeah, no, I really don't have much to change about any of that. I just had that he would be tier 1, like absolute tier 1 in NFL speed. Like, I'm not just saying like, oh, he's tier 1 college speed. Like, this dude is tier 1 NFL speed. It is. And what he was able to do in the college football playoffs when what did he have? Was it an arm injury or a shoulder injury, something? Elbow?
I think it was elbow.
And so he was out there and he was winning constantly with one arm. Like, was just...
Yeah.
It's just that thing that you're going, if you were starting your football team and you've got your guy out there who's playing with one arm and absolutely wrecking dudes, like, yeah, I want him. To me, there's 4 guys. There's 4 guys that I could see that will go in the top 4. It's just going to be based on the order that they go. I think there'll be 2 quarterbacks in the top 4, and there'll be Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. It's just depending on what order they go in my mind. But it's going to be one of those things that... Do you remember, what was it they were saying? It's funny when you actually look back at it. I watched a couple of weeks back, I was watching the 2020 NFL draft and reading some of the details about that while I was looking up a few things. And remember how Chase Young went second? And it was Joe Burrow went first. And all the talk at the time was, hey, look, Chase Young might actually be the best player in the draft, but he won't go number 1.
Yeah.
Like, that was the sort of thought. Like, everyone was like, okay, Cincinnati's got to pick Joe Burrow because they need a quarterback. But Chase Young should actually go first because he's the best player. To me, that's sort of what I'm expecting to see this year. That, like, I'm expecting Cam Ward to go number 1, but Abdul Carter to me is him or Travis Hunter, depending on who you like. But one of those 2 guys should actually be the first guy taken in the draft, because to me, they are the 2 best players in this draft. So, yeah, it's just going to be that. That's how highly I think of Abdul Carter, that he, to me, really, if I'm doing my top 50 big board, I'm tossing up between Hunter and Carter as to who I'd have number 1 overall. Just big board ranking.
Well, I've got here, it's a clear 1A, 1B player in the draft with Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
So it's toss up between those 2 as who's number 1 overall player in the entire draft.
And maybe we'll just cheat. We'll have 2 number 1s and then just go straight to number 3.
Which is where it gets interesting because, still don't think quarterback is number 3 either. So
I don't... well, just a little peek into that. I don't have a quarterback in my top 15 for my big board.
Yeah. It's
I just like too many other guys. It's one of those years where there's going to be I think there's probably going to be 2 quarterbacks in the top 4 picks, but I don't actually have them as top 4 players.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So what we'll do is let's run through. So, Dan, give me your 15 through 1 again. We'll just run through these quickly, and then we will finish the show up from there.
Okay, so 15 was Jordan Birch, 14 was Jared Ivey, 13 Jack Sawyer, 12 Kyle Kennard, 11 JT Tuamaloa, 10 was Landon Jackson, 9 was Princely Uman Mialan, 8 was Donovan Ezeraku, 7 was Nick Scorton, 6 is Jalen Walker, 5 is Shamar Stewart, 4 is Mike Green, 3 is James Pierce Jr., and then 2 was Michael Williams for me, and 1 was Abdul Carter, obviously.
So then with mine, I had Kyle Kennard at 15, Jack Sawyer 14, Jared Ivey 13, JT Tuimoloau at 12, Braden Swinson out of LSU at 11, Landon Jackson 10, Princely Uman-Mielen at 9, Shamar Stewart at 8, Nick Scorton at 7, Michael Williams 6, Donovan Ezeraku at 5, Mike Green 4, Jalen Walker 3, James Pierce Jr. 2, and Abdul Carter 1. So that's our top 15, guys. You and I were speaking before we recorded that actually, as we were going through these, I said to you today, I don't actually think our rankings were going to be too dissimilar than what we originally thought. Because when we first started talking about doing this show, we thought this was going to be we might have had guys completely in or out of our top 15s that the other didn't have. But we've ended up on, I think it was one guy each that we had in our top 15 that the other didn't. So that's pretty surprising. We ended up having about 4 or 5 guys in the exact same spot as well. So we saw a lot of these guys very similarly. So, like I said, if you guys are watching and you've stuck around with us for this long, we really appreciate it. Please go on YouTube and drop your top 15s, or feel free to quibble with Dan or myself as to where we've got our guys and where you think you see them more. So, Dan, have you got anything that you would like to say before we head out of here, since we've been on for an hour and 40-ish minutes by now?
That's not too bad. I thought it would be longer. But this was an exercise in time management and just sheer volume of getting through guys, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, we had like 20 plus guys that we looked through, and it was just non-stop. It's like, oh, here's another guy we better look at. Not that I think he'll be in our top 15, but he's just going to be a guy that is thereabouts.
Yeah.
So this was probably the most labor-intensive sort of draft analysis that I'd put myself through since we've started doing this, and I loved it. It was good fun.
It was great fun. We would love to hear your thoughts on this. So you can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Blue Sky. It's not too difficult. Look up our names. They're scrolling on the bottom of the screen if you're there now. Please, like I said, get in touch. Let us know your rankings. Dan, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun. It was just a pity that we didn't have a little bit more time, that we could have got this out a little bit earlier. But like you said, there were so many guys that we were going through that it just sort of was like, okay, we've got to watch this guy. We've got to watch this guy. We've got to watch this guy.
We didn't want to force it out earlier without putting everything we had into it and doing a disservice, to be honest. Like, this isn't the sort of position group that you can kind of just half-ass it with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for another show. I'm not going to tell you what our next show is yet, because Dan and I still have to figure that out as to which way we're going to go. So we're not sure if we'll keep this defensive train going or if we'll swap to the other side of the ball and do some offensive players and bring that in. We've still got that to think about. So we'll let you know when that show's going to come out and what it is. So on behalf of Dan and myself, everyone here at the Optimus team, please follow us on YouTube. Go to the website. We thank you all for everything. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So on behalf of all of us here at Optimus, thank you for tuning in to the Optimus NFL Show, your ultimate home of NFL football, transforming the way you watch the game. Bye for now. We'll be right back.